Hey, it's you, man, from KC95 here. Good evening and welcome to Toasted Tavern. Your host, Scott Tobin, and the man called Wags are ready to bring you the night in sports. So pull up a stool, grab a drink, and let's get toasted.
Hello and welcome to tonight's edition of Toasted Tavern. And oh my goodness, do I have goosebumps because John Hewlett just introduced me for my own show. This is pretty darn cool. Scott Tobin as well. He's down at Busch Stadium tonight with the Cardinals hosting the Diamondbacks. We did get a chance to talk with him a little bit earlier tonight about a couple of the topics we're going to be going over, but we'll get to that in a few minutes. We have to start off with what has to have been the absolute craziest day in soccer that I have seen in a very, very long time. I know you guys aren't huge soccer fans, but the Euros are going on over in Europe. It's basically the setup to the World Cup for European teams. You've got the big names, France, Germany, England, Spain, everybody going on right now. And two of those teams were involved in, like I said, some of the most epic games I think I have seen in a long, long time. You had Croatia and Spain today, as well as France and Switzerland. And like I said, it was just pure insanity at the Euros today. Celebrations, heartbreak, last-second goals, a penalty shootout at the very end of one of these games. It's just an incredible, incredible display. And I'm going to bring in my buddy Tom Franklin from Toasted STL because he is a soccer fan like myself. And I want to talk to you a little bit about both of these games because you had Croatia and Spain as the kickoff today. And after Croatia eliminates a 2-goal deficit in the final 7 minutes to send it to extra time, you're thinking, wow, epic game. Spain then comes out, scores 2 goals in about a 3-minute span to take the lead, and then they end up winning that game. Just an intense game overall. And you're thinking, man, that's a hell of a game. And then all of a sudden, France and Switzerland come out and go, yeah, you know what? Hold my beer. First, I want to get your take on that Spain-Croatia game, and then we have to talk about France-Switzerland.
Well, sure. And first things first, it wouldn't be a St. Louis-based sports podcast without us prioritizing soccer first. This is total St. Louis right here. Shout out to all the soccer moms that are watching and listening right now. Euro 2020. So Spain came into the Euros with a big problem. They were fancy. They had all this talent. They could make beautiful passes and they can play some beautiful football. There was one problem they had, and it was rearing its head, in the opening divisions. They couldn't finish.
No.
They could not score a goal to save their lives. And today against Croatia, when they needed to, I guess they needed to get their backs against the corner, they put up 5. On a very game Croatia team, a Croatian team that has won some hardware in recent years. So big comeback by Spain. And you're right, I kind of came into this expecting, okay, we're gonna talk about Spain and Croatia. Then France and Switzerland later on. No big deal. By the way, getting back to that Spain-Croatia game, this is how crazy it is. In case you didn't watch today, and a lot of you work, so you probably haven't had a chance to watch. If you have it on your DVR, you might want to step away for, a couple minutes here. 5-4, although we did spoil the final score. We told you 3-1. So forget it. You're spoiled already. Yeah, Spain had a 3-1 lead. 85th minute, Mislav Orsic scores to make it 3-2 Croatia. And you're thinking, okay, well, that's kind of a nice, self-esteem goal, I guess, if you will, just to get on the board and, show your countrymen that your fight hanging in there. No, they tied up with in extra time, 2 minutes of extra time. Mario Pasalic, I'm going to go with that. I apologize to the Pasalic family if I just butchered your name. Ties it up at 3. We're going to extras, and you're right. You're kind of thinking, hey, this might go to penalties, and the second game did today. First game, though, Alvaro Morata at minute 100 and Michael Oyarzabal at 103 decide, you know what, we're not playing around anymore. Spain had the possession advantage at 68%. They had 10 shots on target compared to Croatia's 7, and they had 23 shots in total compared to Croatia's 12. So in that extra period, Spain felt like, okay, they needed to set the record straight. They're one of the best teams in world football, and they set the record straight, I think, with a 5-3 win here. But you mentioned it, that France-Switzerland game. I did not expect Switzerland to put up any resistance. I mean, we all know Switzerland isn't exactly a team that's known for putting up a resistance at wartime. So, in soccer, I mean, they're a pretty decent team. I mean, I don't want to dog them too much, but this is France we are talking about here. France is one of the powers in football. They have so many stars on their roster. Paul Pogba, Kylian Mbappe, who becomes
we'll get to that one.
Go today. Yeah, we'll get to that one here. This was a heck of a game in of itself. I mean, Switzerland comes up with a 1-0 lead early on. Haris Seferovic with the first goal. Karim Benzema then gets 2 in a matter of 3 minutes, the 57th minute and 59th minute. And then Paul Pogba, as I mentioned, one of the world superstars, 75th minute, 3-1 France. And you're thinking, kind of like maybe we were just talking about a 3-1 lead. Maybe maybe that's safe. Maybe that's going to be okay. Switzerland comes back. Seferovic comes back with his second goal of the game at the 81st minute, and then Mario Gavranovic scores in the 90th minute. I really need to brush up on my European names. This is, I'm a public address announcer who's supposed to know these names beforehand. I'm doing a lousy job, but great game, tied 3-3 going into extra time. And unlike the Spain Croatia game, this one's going to penalties, and Wags, Kylian Mbappe, one of the world's top superstars, probably the Ronaldo, Messi level superstar of like the next generation after them, gets a chance to save his team into penalties, and the Swiss goalkeeper says nope.
No, and both teams had gone back and forth. It was goal. No one really missed. Everybody took really good penalty attempts in that. It was 4-4. Then you had Asmir Mehmeti putting the pressure on Mbappe with the fifth goal, and he steps up. And as a star player, you want to be in that moment. You want to be the guy that puts your team on his back and continues to send him through. And he had a chance to do that today. And, they were talking about it right before he took his shot. And he actually recently just missed another penalty kick with an opportunity to give his team a lead. And it was kind of the same exact incident here, except, that goal was the shot was on target. And just Jan Sommer made a great read and a great save. And, you go back to the game itself, and Swiss was up 1-0 at the half. You're like, okay, France not really playing up to their potential right now. And just after the second half began, the Swiss had an opportunity to go up 2-0. A penalty in the box gave them a penalty kick. And Hugo Lloris came up with an absolute banger of a save. And that, in turn, as we say so many times, a great save on one end leads to some success on the other. That's when Karim Benzema got the first of his 2 goals almost immediately after that. And that's saying something for a guy that hasn't been with the club for 5.5 years. Okay, he hasn't been a part of France's team for a while. And yet he comes in, and Benzema is able to knock in not just 1, but 2 goals in about a 2-minute span. And you think, here comes France. Here they come. They are back. They are ready to go. They are just going to roll. And then Pogba gets the goal in the 75th minute, and you're just like, there you go. France is back. They're going to win it. They're the defending champs. They're here. But then just the sheer dedication of the Swiss. And you talk about them scoring in the 90th minute. They'd actually scored not even a minute before that, but it was ruled offside. So if you saw, there's pictures out there of a Swiss fan. And in a minute span, he's got his shirt on. He's looking dejected after that offside. And then a minute later, shirt's off, yelling, going absolutely crazy. And if that doesn't tell you what European soccer is all about, and Tom, you said it earlier in our group chat about, the Euros where chubby, hairy men can rip off their shirts and be excited. That's only in the Euros, and that's what we saw today. And I tell you what, you got to feel for Mbappe. It's a moment that he's going to have to live up to and live down for a long, long time. But it just goes to show you how just wide open the Euros are. My interest is tomorrow. It's the Germany and England game. I'm a big Germany fan, and I'm scared. I'll be perfectly honest. Germany is another one of those teams that's been up at the top for a very long time. They did not look good in the group stage, almost got knocked out by Hungary, and they're going up against an England team that's young and hungry. So that one could be a very, very intriguing game in the 2:00 time frame.
Well, here is something that might make you breathe a little bit easier. Well, actually, two things. Number one, England has a track record of choking, when the moment gets tough. I follow a couple soccer YouTubers from England, and you never hear the end of it whenever they get bounced from either the World Cup or the Euros. It is not pretty, but this will actually be the 13th meeting between England and Germany at Wembley Stadium. And, you would think that, Wembley Stadium, England's got home field advantage. It's in London, the heartbeat of England. But funny thing here, England is actually winless in their last 7 against the Germans in Wembley. They've drawn twice and lost 5 times. So the track record isn't great. In all major tournaments, in the Euro and World Cup, this will actually be the 7th meeting in major competition between England and Germany. And both sides have won 2 games each with 3 draws, though the Germans have progressed via a penalty shootout following 2 of those draws. So history is showing that this should be a fun, entertaining matchup. It'll be a very close matchup. And I will say this for England, again, a lot's been made about their past history in these tournaments. They had a tough road to get to this point. They were in a, pretty gnarly group, in the opening round. And here they are, And, I feel that England's going to come into this one with something to prove that this is not the last generation of choke artists and the generation before that choked. This is a new England. And we'll see if they can get the job done against Germany, who, of course, as you know, Wags, will always bring it.
Oh, yeah, no question about it. And even if they're struggling, they will find a way to at least put the pressure on you and fight to the bitter end. So that's a great game to watch out for in the 2:00 hour tomorrow. All right, enough soccer. I know we bored you to death probably, but I tell you what, they were intense games today, and you should be watching these matchups. Let's jump over to hockey real quick, because announced today was the Winter Classic for 2022. And yes, as you're seeing it on your screen, the Blues and Wild will be participating like they were supposed to last year, but because of COVID, screw COVID, they did not get to play in that. So they will be playing on January 1st, 2022 up in Minnesota. We're going to do our damnedest to get up there and cover that. I know Tom is going to very likely be up there, so make sure. I know
a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy.
We're kind of friends with a guy that would know some stuff and being able to get us in there. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. Get excited for that. I cannot wait for the jersey reveal for the Winter Classic for this upcoming year. Hopefully it's a good one. We'll see. I don't know. We have a lot of fans are kind of up in arms about what it's going to be. But we want to go ahead and talk a little bit about the Stanley Cup Finals, because those are going on right now. And I was able to talk to Scott a little earlier today about his picks for the Stanley Cup Finals with Montreal and Tampa Bay. So we're going to run that real quick, and then we'll come back with Mason Blues Fan Reacts as well. We'll get their picks, and we'll kind of recap what's going on in that game right now. Let's jump over to the NHL real quick, because Stanley Cup Finals are tonight, game 1 between Montreal and Tampa Bay. And we put out there last week after the finals were set as to, who would you guys be rooting for in this Stanley Cup Final? Because you got some St. Louis connections on both sides. You got Jake Allen, Joel Edmundson on the Montreal side, and Mark Bergevin. He's the GM. And yes, he played for the Blues. And then on the flip side for Tampa, you've got Pat Maroon going for his 3rd straight Stanley Cup championship. And as of this recording, we've had some pretty interesting votes. We have 20 votes in our poll, and it's heavily favored towards Montreal. We had 14 of those 20 votes going for the Montreal Canadiens, 6 people voting for Tampa Bay. And it's more so a matter of, are you rooting for Montreal because you want to see Tampa lose, or are you rooting for Montreal because you actually think they can win? That's the big question mark that you have in that, because I think they do have a team that can beat Tampa. They are very reminiscent of the 2019 St. Louis Blues. That's how I've described them the last couple of weeks. I think they are built to beat a team like Tampa, and we've seen how the Blues have played the Lightning in the past. And that's kind of the reasons why I went with Montreal, was because I think they can really, truly beat Tampa Bay. But Scott, I kind of want to get your thoughts on this. Who are you rooting for in this matchup? And do you think a team like Montreal can beat Tampa?
I think it's going to be a really tough series. I think Montreal probably can beat Tampa. I'm pulling. I know this isn't the most popular opinion, but I'm still pulling for the St. Louis, and I'm going with the big rig in that third championship in 3 years. Although, much like you, I'm also a Jake Allen fan in Montreal, so that I wouldn't mind seeing him get that second cup either. But I think Tampa pulls this out. I think it's probably a 7-game series.
It is going to be very, very good. A 7-game series is definitely not out of the question. And, not just the St. Louis connections. I look at Montreal and I go, I've been a big fan of Carey Price since he's come into the league. He's been one of the best goaltenders in the league. And the fact that this is his first chance at a Stanley Cup, and it's a good chance at that. And then you look at Shea Weber, too, on the back end. Hated him when he was in Nashville. He was just the bane of our existence when the Blues played the Predators. But once again, another guy that is getting a chance to win a Stanley Cup, a good guy in that, and I'd love to see him have a chance at hoisting the cup. And Tampa won it last year. They kind of skirted the salary cap this year with the Nikita Kucherov. So there's pieces of the Tampa Bay thing where you go, maybe not. I'm like you though. I do think if Pat Maroon wins that third cup, I would be ecstatic for him, because in the free agency era, we just haven't seen that. It was only the second time that we saw it in the free agency era when he did it last year. He would be the first guy in this agency period to win 3 straight. It doesn't happen. And to have him be the guy that does that would be absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's just a cool story for a St. Louis kid to have that happen, and everything Pat Maroon's been through in his career. So yeah, I hope that I'm really hoping that happens for him. And
speaking of Pat Maroon, real quick, lots of people have said, oh man, the Blues made a huge mistake in letting him go. I can't believe that they did that. The Blues would be so much better with him here. I have an opinion on that. I kind of want to know what your thoughts are on if Pat Maroon would have actually stuck with the Blues. Would he have seen the same success, and would the Blues have seen the same success that Tampa has been seeing if he would have stayed here with the Blues?
Would they have had the same success? I'm not 100% sure, just because of the things that have gone on with this team injury-wise and stuff the last couple of years. They have definitely missed his net front presence, though, that big physical body right in front of the net. It's not afraid to get those dirty goals. I mean, they've definitely missed that since he's been gone, but I'm not sure that they would have that same success if he was here.
And that was Scott and I talking earlier about his pick for the Stanley Cup Finals. He has the Tampa Bay Lightning winning in this series. And just once again, some of the connections from the Blues. You have Jake Allen and Joel Edmundson with GM Mark Bergevin. You've got Pat Maroon in Tampa Bay. Big story, Montreal coming back from 3-1 down to beat Toronto, then swept Winnipeg, and then beat Vegas in 6 games. Tampa, I would say it's a bit of an easier road there. I mean, they beat Florida in 6, they beat Carolina in 5, and the Islanders did take them to 7, but it almost felt like Tampa kind of had the easier route to the finals. But you got a lot of opportunities for some young kids, especially Cole Caulfield getting his chance up in Montreal. You got the Nikita Kucherov thing, which, and people are upset about that. But, when you got the opportunity and you're not breaking any rules, I mean, you do what you got to do. So
not my money. Not my true.
We're not rich enough for that. We don't care.
Not at all. Not at all. So I don't think we got your guys' picks last week on who you thought was going to win the series. I know game 1 is going on right now, but who do you guys, Tom and Mason, think is going to win this series? Who should win? And who do you want to win?
3-1 Tampa.
I think it is 4-3 Montreal to win the series. By the way, Tampa just scored as we are recording here.
Palat.
Yeah, Palat banking the puck out of midair, essentially. It took a bounce off. It looks like Carrot, and then Palat knocks it by Carey Price. So it's a game of bounces so far, because Montreal got their goal basically by doing the Plinko thing.
That was a hand pass on Sergachev that the refs didn't call.
That
was a hand pass on Sergachev in the neutral zone. Oh, no.
And the play goes on.
Hey,
man.
More shades of Montreal being the 2019 Blues. More shades of Montreal being the 2019 Blues. If they come back and
puck's dropped,
well, I'm just saying, the Blues, after they had the hand pass against them in the Sharks, they buckled down and they went on their run. yes, it's the finals. It's a different story. But if Montreal can do the same thing, once I talk about this, I believe that this team, yes, there are 2 former Blues from that team on there, but Montreal reminds me so much of that 2019 team. Good goaltending, solid big defense that blocks shots and limits the shot attempts on goal, and timely scoring. That's what Montreal's doing up until this point. So maybe it is something that, a hand pass going against them, maybe it sparks them and they go around. I don't know if they need much of a spark because they got a good team.
Yeah.
But I went with Montreal as well. I know Tom went with Montreal. Mason, who are you going for again?
What? Okay, you asked 2 separate questions. You said who's going to win and who I want to win. Okay, it's going to be Lightning in 4. Just out of the way, it's going to be Lightning in 4. I'm rooting for the Canadians. I want the Canadians to win more than anything because, yes, while the salary cap whole nonsense with the that's not. There's not a lot of integrity in that, but like they're not. No, they aren't doing anything illegal. I bet the league fixes it after this because I was very strong spoken about saying it's cheating. I mean, it's bending the rules, but I don't think it's really cheating because they're taking advantage of something that any team in the league can take advantage of. Now that I've really thought about it, so I mean, I like I said, I want Montreal to win. It's going to be Tampa in 4, no question about it. But I want Montreal to win, so I would love to see Eddie and Allen and Bergevin, get a cup. So I mean, but when it comes to the reason why I'm not like super invested is as much as I want Tampa to lose, that's actually where a lot of my rooting for Montreal is. I'm really rooting for Tampa to lose. But I don't know. Just thinking about it, I would like to if Pat Maroon does do a 3-peat, like. Good for him. Like that would give me a little bit of, I guess inner solace about, Tampa Bay going back to back. Cause I don't like teams going back to back. It's got to be a new guy every year. So, I mean, I'm glad when Pittsburgh got there first, when they got there second, I was like, oh, okay. And I think it's always going to be that way for me. I don't like repeats unless it's the Blues. Blues can repeat, but nobody else can.
Well, you talk about Tampa in 4. You also mentioned before we went on air about how physical this game was. Right now, Tampa Bay 48 hits, Montreal 46 hits. Is Montreal able to wear down Tampa Bay enough to make this series go longer and give them a better opportunity? Obviously, Tampa's leading this game in hits, but are they really built to be that physical of a team? Because Boston was a physical team when they played the Blues in 2019 as well, but the Blues eventually wore them down as well. Could you see Montreal wearing Tampa Bay down and really forcing this to 7 games and potentially giving Montreal that upper hand?
Possibly, but not likely, because after looking, I don't remember the exact statistics on like the average weight and average height of each of the skaters. I'm pretty sure it was like a 5-pound difference when it was the Blues and Boston. In this series, I hear it's like 15 pounds kind of thing. I hear that Tampa Bay is such a is a significantly bigger team. I think the top guys on Montreal are the better hitters for sure, but all around I think Tampa just kind of has that edge, other than Gallagher and the occasional Armia and maybe the Cole Caulfield, I guess. There's just little players like that can hit, but other than that, and the Josh Andersons, I can't really think of any other players on Montreal who consistently hit other than Shea Weber as well. I keep thinking of new ones.
You keep naming names. All of a sudden, you're naming the whole team.
But I mean, if you think, I'm looking at both teams and I'm looking at how they perfected how they play, and I think Tampa just has that perfect mesh of physicality, speed, skill, and they can run you over. I don't think it's something that Montreal has seen in these playoffs, and I don't think that it's something that they can really keep
Montreal's not going to get pushed over, though. I mean, they still have, you mentioned Anderson, Shea Weber, Ben Sherratt's a big physical defender.
Stahl and Perry. I keep naming names.
We all know about Joel Edmundson, how big and physical he can be. And then you mentioned Corey Perry, who's having a career renaissance in Montreal.
Oh my goodness, good for him.
The old 36-year-old, old fogey who everyone thought that was washed up in Dallas. He's having himself a nice playoffs, 3 goals, 6 assists in 17 games, but his contribution has been on the physical end. This Montreal team's not going to get pushed over by Tampa. I believe the two teams kind of they mix pretty well. It could be, Montreal also has a lot of skill. Tampa has a lot of skill. You're looking at two pretty complete teams. Even the goaltenders, Price and Vasilevsky, you cannot pick which one is better than the other, honestly. Unless it's really close. Vasilevsky and Price have both been exceptional for their teams this playoffs. They almost have identical stats going into this. Vasilevsky is obviously the Vezina candidate, but Price is the $10.5 million man. He's the franchise in Montreal. By the way, Blues fan reacts. Mom reacts. Robin is also going for the underdog. She is rooting for Montreal. Mom. And, it's kind of interesting because you would have thought that going into this series, Blues fans would have wanted to see Pat Maroon get his third cup in a row, and they might have leaned Tampa just for that very reason, because we all love Pat Maroon. Who doesn't love Pat Maroon? Oh, yeah. But here's the thing about St. Louis, especially hockey fans, they're not one to really hop aboard a front runner bandwagon. As Blues fans, they are trained to be underdogs. I mean, this is just our nature. So it doesn't surprise me when we do that poll and 20, people pick Montreal and 6 Tampa, and the 4 of us are rooting for Montreal as well. It's going to be, I don't think this is going to be the Tampa thrashing that a lot of fans think it will be. I think this goes deep. I think this goes 7 games. Injected in my veins, because there's going to be quality hockey. I think every single game is going to be a must watch.
It certainly is. It's going to be a hell of a series, and we've seen it before. Even if Tampa Bay goes on to win this game by a significant margin, we've seen series where a team will do that and they don't win the series. I mean, look at Colorado Vegas. I mean, it's not one of those things where it's one game will define this entire series. Montreal has to find their game against Tampa. Tampa may have an upper hand on Montreal off the bat because they do have a lot more talent, especially on the offensive side of things. I mean, when you got Kucherov in points and you've got guys like Yanni Gordon. Tonight, Eric Cernak got his first playoff goal.
Good for him.
So, and those are the type of players that are going to make this series. It's going to be the guys that are the underdogs. Ben Sherratt got the Montreal goal tonight as well. So it's going to be the third.
Tampa Bay got the Montreal goal tonight.
The pinball. It was an own goal. Going back to our soccer talk, another own goal today. There was one in the Spain game.
Oh man, that was funny. I saw that making the rounds. I was like, how do you manage? You're a professional.
You lollygag the ball up the field. You lollygag the ball back to the goalie. You lollygag the ball and it goes in your own net. What does that make Spain? Lollygaggers.
Good. Yeah, well, when you're that good, you kind of get a little lazy. I mean,
the pain in Spain.
The pain in Spain. Oh goodness.
So the plane.
So we got a couple Montreal picks. We've got a Tampa Bay pick. We're pretty split on that. We do, I think, all believe it's going to be a good series, except Mason. He thinks Tampa Bay is going to wipe the floor with them, apparently, in 4 games.
Here's what I'm thinking. When I look at outside picks of Montreal, like this game goes to 7, when I think of that, I'm thinking, okay, I think most people are coming to that conclusion just because of how wild all of Montreal series have been. They took, Toronto to 7. They took Vegas to 7. They just beat Vegas in 7 games. I don't think people 6. Excuse me. 6. Exactly. They just beat Vegas. My point still stands there. That actually proves it more. It's that these last couple series have been just so wild for the Montreal Canadiens. So I think people are thinking, okay, logic goes out the window. I think Montreal takes this a lot farther than people think, and that's where the Montreal and 6, Montreal and 7 comes from. I look at both teams. I just can't see it. Tampa Bay has steamrolled, all 3 of their opponents, or 2 of their opponents. I can't talk today. My analysis is terrible today. No, but they took New York to 7, which they absolutely shouldn't have. But they steamrolled through Carolina. They steamrolled through Florida. Both of them were having incredible seasons. I can't see Montreal keeping up. I can't see it.
But Montreal ended up playing a tougher road. I mean, they played Vegas, one of the toughest teams out there. They played. I mean, they took out Toronto after being down 3-1. They swept Winnipeg, which is a team that was ahead of them in the standings and a better team this year. So, I mean, I almost feel like they're battle tested. They can adjust and fight and take this to the bitter end versus a team, like you said, in Tampa that steamrolled teams. I mean, we see how teams that steamroll people, they'll get a little bit full of themselves. And then an underdog team comes and smacks them in the face, and all of a sudden you're in Game 7 and the opponent is up 2-0, and you're like, what the fuck just happened?
Well, Tampa's also dealt with adversity this season as well. Let's not forget they played in the Central Division, which was basically Fury Road, for NHL
Mad Max style hellscape was the Central Division.
It really was, which by the way, for all you Blues fans that were wishing we would have stayed in the Central, thank God we weren't in the Central, because you had Dallas coming up the works with COVID, and then you had just an absolute death trio at the top. Tampa was third.
Yeah,
the Central going into this playoffs. Let's not forget that they were third. Carolina and Florida really showed up this year, and Tampa as well. The Southeast took over hockey this year. That is how weird this year has been. But yeah, Tampa's had a tough road as well. Of course, let's not forget they didn't have Kucherov in the regular season, which we've lamented that fact, already ad nauseum on this show. So we're not going to broach that. But it's funny how similar these two teams came into the finals here. I mean, they both had to face adversity at some point. Montreal kind of has that underdog vibe. I don't think it's an apples to apples comparison with the St. Louis Blues. There's differences. I mean, Binnington was never considered in Carey Price's class of goaltending. Yeah. Or he, hit the scene in 2020. So, one small difference. Also, I don't know if Montreal has a Layla Anderson, so that's. No. So there's another one as well,
or John Hamm,
or John Hamm, or Charles Glenn. We can go on and on.
Charles Glenn, oh yeah.
No, they just have the mystique of Montreal and the French Canadian and the double languages and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we didn't have that too. So but that Blues there.
God, that Blues story, I wouldn't have had it any other way in 2019. So many things.
It really is
so many things.
How many pieces came together for the Blues to make that Stanley Cup run work? I mean, we even mentioned Laura Branigan. We brought Laura Branigan back from the dead, literally, to pump some life into this team. That's how weird, that
all right, guys,
Cup run is.
On your Stanley Cup final Game 1 bingo bracket, how many bingo card? How many of you had Corey Perry makes an absolute fool out of David Savard and Mikhail Sergachev going around the net, dancing backwards and taking a shot on Vasilevsky that almost went top corner?
What year is it?
I don't even think it was on anybody's bingo card when he first came into the league.
He's just you made a fool out of him. That was so funny to watch.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Hockey doesn't exist. I'm convinced. Convinced of it. I don't go to nearly enough games to refute that. I think that they're all staged just for me to go to. I think you guys are in on it. I think hockey doesn't exist. I think you guys pretend to go to games, but they're actually just very elaborate shows. And
it's
everything's
all 3D,
a hoax like the moon
all
landing.
3D special effects. Everything's scripted.
Actually, hockey is Dungeons and Dragons. Basically, you have some set rules, but everything is made up on the fly. And Gary Bettman is the dungeon master.
Oh gosh!
The NHL is actually underwritten by the WWE, so everything's scripted and nothing's real.
Is that fake news or is that
who put out that memo?
No, it's fake. That's fake.
Wow!
News.
Who put out that memo? I was gonna say.
Who knew all along it was Vince McMahon? The NHL.
I mean, he tried to do the NHL on the football field, so it wouldn't be a shock if the WWE had a hand in the NHL at some point. So you never know.
Turns out Kucherov wasn't injured for the last 2 months of the regular season. Wait,
not. Of course not. He was just having a good time sitting, in some resort in Russia, probably.
Drinking
vodka. Resorts in Russia?
Drinking vodka and being massaged by Russian women.
It was pretty nice. That's why they had the Olympics there.
Yeah. Yeah, there was nothing wrong with the Sochi Olympics. Nothing.
I
at
wouldn't
all.
know.
Oh, nothing at all. It was 100% humanitarian, and it was. By the way, apparently, a lot of what they built up in Sochi for the Olympics kind of resembles like Pripyat, near Chernobyl. It's like a ghost town. It's like, you go there to like, admire the ruins like you go through Detroit now. That's
or
what
St. Louis.
Or
parts of St. Louis. Yeah.
Well, hey, you know what? Speaking of St. Louis, speaking of the Olympics, we got to talk a little bit about Americans on the world stage, because right now, surprisingly, Americans are doing well on the big stage. We'll talk about the Olympics in just a second. I want to touch on tennis because, once again, just like soccer, tennis is not something we talk a whole lot about, but Wimbledon's going on right now. Biggest showcase in tennis history, essentially. And a couple of Americans making names for themselves. I mean, Sloane Stephens had a great matchup today. She advanced along with Sophie Kennan, Danielle Collins, and Lauren Davis. Madison Keys, also a straight set winner today over Katie Swan. So Americans are faring well on the women's side of the bracket. Serena Williams, Venus Williams kick off tomorrow. So you could see a bunch of American women advancing. Tom?
4-1 Tampa, number one. Number two, are the Williams sisters undead? Because, like, seriously, they're going to play until like they're 80. I think they've been around forever. They've had a unusually long tennis career, both of them. I mean, I remember watching tennis in the 90s, Martina Hingis, Anna Kournikova, here and gone.
Yeah.
It felt like just in a couple of years. And then Serena and Venus started right along with them, and they're still playing tennis 20 years later.
It's about dedication to the sport. It's about training and all of that stuff. You look at Anna Kournikova. Well, what was she more known for? I mean, she was a decent tennis player, but she was known more for her looks. You look at just Maria Sharapova, same sort of thing. She was a decent tennis player. I think she rose up close to number one in the world.
She was number one for a while. She was actually a pretty good tennis player, but I think injuries kind of cut her down over time. Oh,
most definitely. Injuries and wanting to pursue other opportunities. You look at Venus and Serena Williams, and they both were dedicated to that sport. They wanted to dominate. Their father pushed them, I think, maybe a little too much to that goal. But when they were winning, they're like, okay, we're going to do this. And then Serena has just become one of the best players in the world. And she just had a kid just recently and within the last year. And yet she's back to sheer domination on the court. So, I mean, I think it's about dedication more than anything else. And you can last a long time. And you still look over at the men's side, Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer, they're not as dominant as what they used to be, but they're still playing at an advanced age in tennis. So, I think tennis is another one like golf where age is just kind of a number. It's more so about, stamina and training and the ability to go all out in that instance. Speaking of Americans now on the men's side, Denis Kudla was a 5-set winner over Alejandro Fokina, the 30th ranked player in the world. And the big upset today, Frances Tiafoe upset number 4, Stefanos Tsitsipas, in straight sets. Never beaten an ATP top 5 player. But Tiafoe advances, and this is a guy, Tsitsipas, who actually just finished second to Djokovic in the last tournament. So this is a guy that was playing very, very well. And Tiafoe comes in and beats him in straight sets. So that's a pretty good feather in the cap for the American. The last time an American beat a top 5 player was Andy Roddick. So, I mean, that shows you what American men's tennis is like.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting for sure. I mean, I still think this is Djokovic's tournament to lose. He beat Jack Draper in 4 sets. They dropped the first, but then rattled off 3 straight. So it's still probably going to be a Djokovic tournament winner. But the Americans could make a little bit of noise and maybe put tennis back on the map here in America.
Yeah, tennis is kind of due for another rebound. I mean, it's a sport that I feel like in my lifetime, it's kind of gone in cycles a little bit. I remember, when Sampras and Agassi, came up in the 90s, those were like the first 2 marketable games and names in quite a little while. So, it's going to be a fun tournament for sure. And I just that's all I got to say about it.
Yeah, it's tennis. I mean, it's tennis. So we just kind of nice to see Americans.
It's one of those tournaments. It's like it's their Super Bowl basically.
Yeah.
So, it's something that I'll tune in just because it's Wimbledon.
You have to see the pomp and circumstance. Let's talk a little bit about the Olympics, because just this past weekend the gymnastics trials were here in St. Louis. and nearly 21,000 people were at the Dome Sunday to watch the women's team essentially compete to be announced an all-time U.S. Olympic trials record. Simone Biles, pound for pound, one of the best athletes today. She led the way, even if she had a bit of a slow start on Sunday. Ben Fred of STL Today says, blame it on the prevailed, because she had emos taken to her on Saturday night. And there's an image that went out of her maybe enjoying it, not really sure. She didn't look like she ate it, but had a smile on her face. I don't know. What's your reaction to the Biles emo pizza controversy?
There was definitely some pizza eaten. I just don't know if any of it was eaten by her. Like when I worked at Emos,
you gotta stay fit, Tom.
Well, kind of trade secret. So when I worked at Emos, I don't know if they do this anymore, but any pizza that we would make and then the customer would refuse it or whatever, we would leave it for us to kind of like us workers to kind of nosh off of as the night goes on. I wonder if that was one of those like customer reject pizzas, that the employees were already eating, and there's like, oh, we need to pose for a photo. Simone Biles is here. So yeah, I would imagine that a world-class athlete like Simone Biles on the very weekend that she is training to make it to the U.S. Olympic team, I doubt she is shoving emos in her face. I really, really doubt it. Also, a few people pointed out in that photo, where were the toasted raviolis? Maybe she ate those before the photo.
Maybe that's what she had. Yeah. Hey, you know what? Toasted Ravs are the way to go. I mean,
that's right.
It's not like it's part of our names or logo or anything.
It's a small part. It's a small part.
It's kind of stupid. I've never had one. I'm like part of a sports. That's literally our
You got to get out here. You got to get out here.
I know I have to. I know.
You have to.
I'm sure there's a store.
There's toasted. Okay, I looked around and there is a Toasted Ravs place here in Salt Lake. It's a St. Louis style place. I'm not going to it because I want my first Toasted Ravs in St. Louis.
Fair. So the hill would be the way to go. Yeah,
I'm abstaining. So
nothing wrong with that.
I'm making my middle school teachers proud. I'm abstaining.
Mason is having a hunger strike until he actually gets to St. Louis and actually has an authentic toasted Rav.
Oh boy, yeah, you got to get out here for that. Down on the hill, we'll take you out. We brought up the Olympics and the gymnastic trials because it seems like St. Louis has become a real sports destination over the last couple of years. You've got the Olympic trials record being set with fans in attendance. You had the PGA Championship back in 2018. You had the Stanley Cup run, All-Star Game, everything around that Winter Classic with the Blues. And you've got so much when it comes to sports here in St. Louis. I mean, soccer's still big here. We talked about that earlier. And all the, exhibition matches that come here as well get sold out. Is St. Louis a true sports destination in your guys' mind?
Oh yeah. Even when I was an outsider, I've never lived in I've only been to St. Louis one time. Even before I was into Blues hockey, I knew that St. Louis was a sports town. When I thought of St. Louis, I always thought baseball. I didn't really think of the hockey, but I mean, after going there, after being at Ballpark Village a couple times, after, going to an actual Blues game at then Scott Trade Center, of course it's a sports town. And we actually went to a Rams game too while we were up there. I know that's a sore spot. That's a sore spot, but I mean, I did. And the fans loved it there, albeit the crowd, it was like half capacity. There weren't very many people there, but I mean, it was the fans are proud of their team, there's a lot of fun. How many cities truly have a sports bar half as cool as Ballpark Village? I can't think of any. So
yeah, not many. And with the Rams, by the way, don't use the Rams as a barometer for St. Louis fandom, because that team ran our spirit into the ground, for so many years. It was just, I was almost ashamed to be a Rams fan.
I mean, okay, so do the Blues. Let's be real. For 50 years.
For some reason, it's
a different kind of pain. I get that.
It's a different kind of pain. The Rams were deliberate. The Blues were just the Blues. That was, that's just that. I mean, that's just saying, it was a team that just, it got into your blood, literally.
Mm-hmm.
The Blues did. The Rams never really did.
They're a transplant.
And that's fair to say, but don't use that as a barometer. Think back to, we talked about Vince McMahon earlier and his XFL, the Battlehawks.
Yeah.
They're probably the reason Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson swooped in and bought the rights to the XFL. And in fact, I know that he's, he and his wife have actually featured, like the Battlehawks crowd and like some of their graphics, some of the limited stuff they put out. So I think the Battlehawks are coming back at some point. So watch out for that. But
that'd be nice.
I was a season ticket holder for the Battlehawks. I was there for the first game. The second game I couldn't make, but the first game, it was so liberating actually having optimism for your football team again. Mm-hmm. It was so liberating. It was so different from the Rams. I can't properly explain it. So we had that. We had the big turnout for for the PGA Championship golf. We even had a tennis team, a professional tennis team called the St. Louis Aces for many years, from '96 until 2011. They played out in Forest Park. We talked about Anna Kournikova. She played for the St. Louis Aces. Lindsay Davenport, one of the top female players in the U.S., she was a St. Louis Ace as well. And I remember they actually had decent turnout for those games. They lasted, I think, for the entirety of the league that they were in. So, we, and of course, I don't have to talk about the Cardinals, although except this season, which that's one thing St. Louis fans don't have a high tolerance for is losing and bad play. And
even though you'd think we would, because we're used to it, but like,
no, see, that's the thing, though. We're not used to bad play because our teams have always been relatively successful. It's been the heartbreaking ends that we're really used to. It's the teams are always there. I mean, the Blues went on a multi-year playoff run. The Cardinals, and especially in the Tony La Russa era, were always at the top of the division, always making the playoffs. A lot of times the bridesmaid, never the bride. The Rams had a couple of years. So, I mean, if you're going to talk about getting used to losing, the Rams would be a piece of that. But even go back to indoor soccer, the Ambush were a winning franchise for a very long time. This city has a lot of winning in their blood. It's more about those heartbreaking endings, the teams not finalizing the years that they should have won. But then you have the underdog stories where they're like, wow, totally unexpected, love the championship. So it's more about the heartbreaking ends than it is more about the losing side of things. We're not the lovable losers that the Cubs fans were for a very long time. We're not that. It's more of we're the cardiac cards. We're the heartbreak blues. That's kind of what St. Louis was used to for so long, and that's kind of what we're at. We're not used to this sustained losing that we're going through in a lot of these sports.
That's true. Well, you guys aren't, but I was kind of speaking through my experience as well, forgetting that I only root for the Blues, a little bit of the Cards. That's about it when it comes to St. Louis sports. I'm a Mariners fan. Ooh. That's painful. That sucks.
Suffering right there. Jeez.
I was a Sonics fan when they were in Seattle. That sucked.
So there's your
you weren't alive for you weren't really a big part of the Gary Payton, Sean Kemp era. So
nope,
yeah,
was
you're right.
Not part of that. So I was after that. I was right before they relocated, about 10 years before they relocated.
And like 1 year of Kevin Durant.
Oh, that was about it. The 1 year of Kevin Durant. And that's
1 year of Kevin Durant. You got
1 year.
Durant.
I was a Seahawks fan until they won their Super Bowl, but that was a heartbreaking Super Bowl loss. That sucked.
Also, Seahawks fans, I feel that's a painful team to root for. It
is a painful team to root for.
They were awful.
Down there,
in
Russell
the 90s.
Wilson trade rumors circling around now. It's like, come on. He's the best quarterback the franchise has ever had, and now you're trading him because you can't find the right pieces. I don't think that's his fault.
No, not his fault at all.
I don't think they trade Russell Wilson. Otherwise,
I think they will.
I think he would have gone to Chicago before the draft if they're gonna trade Russell Wilson, because apparently the Bears were ready to pay that price, and Seattle said no.
Well, a team that might pay the price, and that might be a team that is getting ready to lose a quarterback, but they may not have the money to do that because there was a report about Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. Scott and I talked about that earlier today as well. News and notes going on in the world of sports. I don't know if you guys have heard about it, but Scott brought up this very interesting nugget about Aaron Rodgers and his contract with Green Bay and how he could almost, I guess, stick it to the Packers and not have to pay anything back. What's going on with the Rodgers-Packers situation?
Well, the league came up with an idea that because of COVID safety, players had the option, I think it's by July 2nd, they could opt out of the season. They wouldn't get their year of service time, but they could get their whole guaranteed paycheck and opt out for the season. So the big worry in Green Bay right now is, we all know the problems with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Aaron Rodgers could technically opt out of the season on July 2nd, get his $18 million signing bonus, and then at the end of the season retire, and he would not face the penalties or have to pay back any of that money to the Packers that he would have to do if he sat out the season. So, his career would be over. There would be no coming back next year or anything because the Packers would still have his rights for 2 more years. But he could take that $18 million, go sit home, and then say, I'm done. I'm going to do Jeopardy and not have to pay a penny of that money back.
That's a pretty good nest egg right there. Especially if you're taking a risk and doing something like becoming the host of Jeopardy, or maybe you're going to go try and make it in Hollywood or have you. Having $18 million to kind of fall back on guaranteed makes that decision a little bit easier. And the fact that now, he's either married or getting married to a Hollywood actress, that angle seems to be the direction he's kind of going right now. And after seeing the videos, him with his interesting haircut and all that kind of stuff, it really does make me think that the age of Aaron Rodgers is probably over in Green Bay, and you might be seeing the Jordan Love era begin very, very quickly. And like I said, it might have an option for a Russell Wilson going in there, but if they have to basically pay Aaron Rodgers $18 million, I don't see them being able to pull the trigger on a Russell Wilson type deal. So maybe not leaving Seattle, but you never know. We'll see what happens in that instance.
Well, and not only that, but it's you do have the contract is going to be a big issue with Rodgers. You also have Justin Love, who was a first round pick. You invested a decently high pick, for Justin Love to be the quote unquote heir, which is how Aaron Rodgers took over from Brett Favre. He was a first round pick that, sat for a couple of years behind Favre until Favre finally decided he's, going to move on instead of retiring. We all know how that went. But, and now it's like with Rodgers, I feel this Rodgers drama kind of, feels a little bit like the Brett Favre drama, toward his end time with the Packers, where, Favre was wore out. He wanted out. He wanted to keep playing. The Packers wanted to give the new guy a shot, which I don't get exactly get that impression with Love, but I feel the Packers should give Justin Love at least a year. You spent all this time and the high pick on him. See what you got. Maybe you've got a revelation here in him. I don't know what his rep is, from practice, but it's a tough situation Rodgers has the Packers in right now because they're really hamstrung. They basically have, they've set up their franchise really to revolve around Aaron Rodgers. And he is still for most of his career. Well, he is basically, without Aaron Rodgers, are the Packers nearly as good as they are? Did they, over the past, decade? I don't think
they're not. They're not, but they haven't built around him either. He's had to elevate players around him. They don't go out and get the star players or draft a wide receiver. They draft a quarterback in the first round in Jordan Love. 6-1. 5-1. Well, hey, like I said, just because Tampa's going to win big doesn't necessarily mean the series is over. But that's the thing with Aaron Rodgers.
Montreal's worn out. I'm sorry for interrupting. Montreal is just dead right now.
It's possible that they wear themselves out. I don't know. It's gonna, like I said, it's gonna be an interesting series for sure.
Still a long haul.
It's game one. It's game one.
But
so
still,
we'll see how it plays out. I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to play again at all. But they also, he hasn't been given a whole lot. And you say it's the same as the Brett Favre situation. The Brett Favre situation, at different points during his career, he had talent around him. But as it got later on in his career, they started to be penny pinchers. They started to kind of cut down on what they had around him to kind of essentially usher him out the door. That's the same thing they're kind of doing with Aaron Rodgers. They're kind of cutting down his talent around him and ushering him out the door. Maybe Jordan Love is the guy that they want. It has to be because they spent a first round pick on him, like you said. So this might be the same situation. Now, Brett Favre kind of forced his way out and forced a trade out of Green Bay, and there was a lot of bad blood there. There's a lot of bad blood here as well, but Aaron Rodgers isn't necessarily pushing his way out of Green Bay. I think it's more a matter of he just wants more things around him, more control of the franchise in a sense, and that's where it differs slightly. But if the protocols that are in place right now give you the ability to say, hey, I'm opting out of the season, I'm going to collect my money, and then I'm going to just end my career. Oh, well, I don't have to pay it back. Works for me. So this might have been the perfect storm for Aaron Rodgers for sure.
Yeah, he doesn't need to play another down
in
the NFL. He is made for the rest of his life and for future generations. He can do all the State Farm commercials. He won't have
that'll keep him going.
He won't have that pesky football to get in the way.
Just double check.
Yeah.
Oh goodness. Oh goodness. All right. Let's.
And by double check, we mean the checks that he gets from State Farm.
Yes, and the NFL. The double checks. I do want to say one thing about hockey before we continue. I'm predicting because at the end, I don't know. Tom, you have the game on.
Yeah, I'm
right
watching
now. You're watching. A lot of those hits in the last 10 minutes were very questionable hits. Very questionable. There were a lot of I'm predicting, this is bold, somebody's going to have a career-ending injury in this series. I guarantee it.
I don't know about a career ender, but we could see another Kadri situation where he maims someone and he misses time.
Look at this crap. There's just dirty crap going on all over this side. This is like refs did not have control of that game in the last 10 minutes. That was brutal.
Yeah, I just saw Kucherov get chopped down, like he was a tree.
Yeah. So there's a lot of questionable crap that's going on in that game. That's too bad.
You've seen the meme, right, of the rules by the NHL. Like for regular season, it's a huge book about this big. Playoffs, it goes down to here. Yeah. Finals, it's like a single piece of paper. So yeah, it makes 100% total sense.
It's one piece of paper in bold lettering. Murder is legal. And that's it.
Man,
Shell the Purge.
Sheesh.
Oh gosh.
This is either gonna be a really entertaining series or a really hard one to watch if that's what people are gonna do. Because Montreal got pissed after that 5th goal. They were pissed, and rightfully so. But it's just
they pissed at themselves for not allowing 5 goals in game 1.
So, that wasn't their fault. The Tampa Bay was just running all over them. They were skating circles around them, especially in that 3rd period.
Wait, but if Tampa Bay's skating circles around them, how is it not Montreal's fault for not being able to stop them? Like it's not like Tampa Bay's.
Montreal can play as good as they want. Nobody's beating Tampa. I don't think an Olympic team could keep up with Tampa Bay right now. They look freaking unbelievably good.
Then why is Montreal getting pissed at Tampa? Because Tampa's better than them.
They're trying their best and they're losing. You know that feeling. That feeling. Where you're playing as good as you can. You're having the best game you've ever had, and you're still losing. That is a shitty feeling.
Okay, no, but here's the thing, though. You're playing the best game you can play, and you're still losing. You have to give respect and props to the team that's beating you. If you're playing a shitty game. I mean, I would be upset, yes, but I could also sit there and say, look, this team is obviously superior than us.
Yeah, yes, and Tampa's been doing dirty shit on the ice, too.
Well,
Tampa's been doing dirty shit, so Montreal's like, okay, screw you. Refs aren't calling. They go to the refs like, you're not calling anything, right? They're like, nope. Okay.
If Tampa Bay's going out there and playing dirty and skating circles around him, at least, Montreal has the thought process of, okay, if you're going to do it, then we can too. Maybe we take one of you down. Maybe we get back in the series. I get that. But if it's literally just you're having the best game that you've ever played and they're beating you, you can't really get pissed about that.
Well, and now you've got Montreal, playing out of their minds right now and not in a good way. They got them angry and you've just, karate chopped them in the throat, 5-1 in game 1. So, Montreal is obviously, when you're trailing like that, it's game 1 of the Stanley Cup final. You got to show that you're not going to lay down. And I think that's that's a little bit of what we saw tonight, and just general frustration. I mean, you've worked this hard to get to this point here, and you're trailing, and it just seems like nothing's going your way. Yeah, you're going to get a little chippy. So
you got to be smart though. Don't take yourself out of the series in game 1. That's the whole piece.
Don't cadre yourself.
No, do not. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Cardinals because that's somehow have not even gotten to that yet.
I don't even follow Cardinals baseball, and I know just how absolutely depressed everyone is right now.
They lost 5 of 6 to the Pirates and the Tigers last week. They fall 4 games under 500. They're hosting the Diamondbacks, the only team in baseball that's absolutely worse than they are right now.
They had a 17-game losing streak at one point. 17.
Yeah, it's I don't even know what to say about that, but you can tell that right now the Cardinals are still kind of at the same level as the D-backs right now because it's the bottom of the 7th. It's a 1-1 game. Dylan Carlson, an RBI triple in the 3rd. Rojas hit a solo home run in the 5th. Wade LeBlanc went 4 in the 3rd, gave up 4 hits, earned run, walked 1, struck out 2, 71 pitches. So decent showing from the bullpen guy in Wade LeBlanc. And right now, Edmundo Sosa just doubled the lead off the bottom of the 7th. And this is the thing about this game, and this is where the frustrations with the Cardinals are at right now. Throughout this game, they have had runners in scoring position, leadoff doubles, first and second, no outs, and they cannot drive anybody home. And that, I think, has been the bane of this team's existence right now. And we're going to talk tomorrow about the guys or the potential reinforcements that are coming up for the Cardinals and maybe some trades that are going down. But when it really comes down to it, you have to look at, is this pitching, hitting, or both? And if it's one of the two, what do you do to rectify that situation?
It's all of the above. It is all of the above. I mean, look, right now, as we are recording this, it is 1-1, and they are taking on a starting pitcher. Well, at least they did. He lasted 4 innings. Jake Faria, who is starting in his first major league game since 2018. He's mainly a reliever. This guy is pretty much Jake from State Farm. And they've only got 1 run against Jake from State Farm, essentially. This is kind of sad.
Still one more run than they got against the guy making his major league debut last night.
Baby steps, okay? Baby steps, okay? Which you shouldn't say that when your hitting coach is the famed Jeff Albert. It's not working. It's not working, bro. I mean, I think before they make a trade, which one trade's not going to fix this ship. This ship's going down this year. I think. I think the Cardinals are pretty much at a point of almost no return here. But if there's a change that they need to make, first and foremost, Jeff Albert, take a hike, because it ain't working. You have Paul Goldschmidt, you have Nolan Arenado, you have even when you look at the starting lineup for tonight's game, for instance, there's not like a guy you look at and say, well, that's a bad hitter. Not really. You have some talented sticks there, and you're not making the use out of them at all. That is, and whenever you have Tommy Edman the other night coming out and saying that we are not prepared, that is on the hitting coach.
Not necessarily, though, because if you listen today, Mark Reynolds came out on ESPN, 101 ESPN. He was interviewed today, and Matt Holliday has also come out and talked about this, that the team has all of the things that you could ever want when it comes to video preparation or any of that. It is on the player to be ready to go for whatever matchup that you're going to have. Yes, it would be better if the team as a whole was able to prepare and kind of make plans. But if you're going to blame preparedness as the reason why you're not hitting, that's a baseless accusation against the team, because you have it in your hands to get the video, to do whatever you want as far as repetition and practice to get yourself prepared to go up against somebody. Okay, that is in the player's hands. And I have no love for Jeff Albert. I think what he's done with the Cardinals and the philosophy is not there, because if you look at it top to bottom, from the majors all the way down to the minors, the hitting system is not right. Every team in the Cardinals organization is under 500, okay, from the top to the bottom. So there's something fundamentally wrong there. But if a player has within his grasp the ability to do the preparation on his own and doesn't do that and says, oh, well, we're not prepared, that is basically saying that the hitting coach isn't doing anything about it, but the player is also saying, screw it, as the Cardinals do take a 2-1 lead on a Dylan Carlson single into center field. So 2-1 Cardinals in the bottom of the 7th.
Talking about everything's fine.
Yeah, okay, they're winning the game. But I do think, I think you're right. I mean, Jeff Albert does have to go. He came from Houston. He was kind of a no-name guy, and he built his reputation on the Houston hitting. Well, what did we find out a couple years ago about the Houston hitting? wasn't necessarily all about the preparedness.
Where's my plastic trash can?
Exactly. So now you look at it and you go, well, really, why was Jeff Albert successful? Who knows? We're not seeing the same sort of success here because they got rid of all the trash cans in the dugout. But at this point, is Mozeliak just basically hanging on to him because he doesn't want to admit the mistake? And that's the thing that we talked a little bit about with Scott earlier today. You'll hear that tomorrow. But Mozeliak does not like to admit his mistakes.
No.
And this is another one of those mistakes that he's not going to admit until it's probably too late, and he's not going to get fired, and the Cardinals are going to go on a run. And there was an article today about the 1978 Cardinals. Is this team a mirror image of that, where they are just going to be terrible, or do we feel like this team can't actually pull out? They are a second half team. Scott's mentioned it in the past. This is a second half team. The last couple of years, they put things together. Can they make a run in a very winnable division, even though they are 8 games out?
Well, one of the things that we did at KMOX right when the pandemic started was we replayed a bunch of games from the 2011 run. When the Cardinals, it looked like they were in the depths of despair, for much of the season. And then they rebound in the second half of the season and hey, they win a World Series. You're right. They are historically have been a second half team, but I feel that the situation with Jeff Albert kind of, is just another example of why there's one word that you can describe this Cardinals front office, from the owner, down to John Mozeliak, and then even down to the manager's, office, and that is stubborn. This team is stubborn. They don't like change. They don't, and if you are like, if you have to be like when Mike Matheny was let go, he had a prolonged, time in St. Louis where everyone wanted his head. They stuck with him. He was the heir apparent to Tony La Russa. They stuck with him. Finally, they let him go, late in the season. In fact, I think I was there for his last game, and I think, it was, I don't think anyone in the stadium still believed that he was going to be let go before the end of the season. And then as we're going to our cars, we got the announcement that he was let go. This team, this organization needs to be more proactive, because the number one indicator that you're struggling as a franchise is take a look at the crowd and look at all the red seats that are around Busch Stadium. We are coming off a pandemic here. We are coming off a year where fans could not go to the ballpark at all. The smell of the hot dogs, the beer vendors, all of the smells and the sceneries and the sounds of Busch Stadium, we were deprived of that for a year. We can go back now. Full crowd, 100% capacity. We're not there. And it's not because we're afraid of COVID. It's not because, of ticket prices, although ticket prices are a pretty penny. But I think it's just simply because they're not going to pay that pretty penny to go watch the product that we have been getting for the last month. Changes have to be made. Whether it's Jeff Albert, I don't think Mike Shildt, I don't think it's time for him yet. I think he deserves at least the rest of the season, to try to right this ship. And, to be fair, I don't think anyone anticipated the Cardinals starting rotation being this bad. I think we thought that, Carlos Martinez would be, a sub-6 ERA pitcher. That too much to ask out of Tsunami now, apparently, which, by the way, I was actually talking about this with Tom Ackerman, Wags. Can you remember in recent memory a bigger Cardinals waste of talent than Carlos Martinez?
Oh my God. Like a homegrown talent?
Like a homegrown talent, a guy that was a member of the Cardinals that was going to be a franchise guy, and he just completely pissed it away.
I mean, I don't think you can really say anything along those lines. I mean, I think you look at a guy like an Alan Craig, a guy that kind of burst onto the scene that maybe not necessarily superstar level, but did have a potential to be a secondary piece to an Albert Pujols. You could say maybe, but I don't think it's as big.
I think Craig was an overachiever.
He probably was. So, I mean, you look at that. I mean, there's a couple of guys that were overachievers. Hector Luna was another guy that was a Rule 5 guy that maybe had a chance, but nothing to the extent of the, I guess, talent level, expectations, and projections Carlos has been a guy that's been a baby Pedro in a sense. People thought Pedro Martinez-esque type of player, and we're seeing the same thing with Alex Reyes as well, another guy that could be a Pedro Martinez type of pitcher. And he's just basically pissed it away. And he's had moments, and he's had a lot of missteps. And you look at it, and you look at the Oscar Tavares death, and I'm not to sit there and say that was the moment that everything turned poorly for Carlos, because there were moments before that, but having someone that maybe you were mentoring and bringing alongside and saying, hey, I got you under my wing, having somebody that loses their life that early in a tragic accident like that maybe changes somebody and maybe makes them go into maybe a bit of a depression or something of that nature. And then you have a manager like Mike Matheny, who's here, that maybe just doesn't understand the culture and things around that. And all of that kind of was a perfect storm in Tsunami's case in a sense. And it's kind of spiraled downhill, and maybe a change of scenery is what Carlos needs. And I do wish him nothing but success if he goes somewhere, but I don't know if that's even going to be the case. And it kind of takes me back to the question I was going to ask you a little earlier when we were talking about managers. Do you think the Cardinals made a mistake in passing on Jose Oquendo for Mike Matheny?
Yeah. I think at the time it was the right move going with Matheny. I mean, Matheny had a reputation for being a very smart guy, and he was one of the most respected catchers around the league. I mean, he was a supreme defensive catcher, in his time. But I think at the time Matheny was groomed to be the heir apparent, as I mentioned. It seemed like that was the path that they were always going to go. I can understand if you're Jose Oquendo being miffed by that, because I remember during that time period a lot was coming out about how instrumental Oquendo was, for the team. Whether he was a base coach or a bench coach, he had a lot of influence on guys like Yachty and Albert Pujols back then. And who knows, if they did go with Oquendo, maybe Oquendo's still managing the Cardinals today. That is an interesting question, but again, that's with hindsight.
Oh yeah,
I think, but at the time, if you were to tell me should they go with Matheny or Oquendo, I would have said Matheny.
See,
I was Matheny, and I would have ate my words later.
Completely opposite for me, because Matheny, 0 managerial experience, 0. And yes, at the time, the rage was all about getting former catchers or former players with 0 managerial experience into the leadership role. Jose Oquendo was a manager of Puerto Rico for multiple instances. He had managerial experience. He had experience with the likes of Molina and Pujols and guys like Ortiz. I mean, just a bunch of star players. And then you look at the makeup of that clubhouse. I mean, there was definitely a Latin feel to that clubhouse. So instead of having somebody that could really relate and kind of shape and mold, especially some of the younger players like a Carlos, like an Oscar Tavares, and you're throwing a guy that's essentially Tony La Russa light. And even at the end of La Russa's time here, you could still feel a little bit of tension in the clubhouse with La Russa. Well, you continued to have that with Mike Matheny. You saw why Jason Hayward left. You saw the issues that Dexter Fowler here had in St. Louis with Mike Matheny. I'm not saying that racism or anything was involved in it, but there was just a different culture that Matheny kind of continued with La Russa. And I think if you would have had Oquendo here with the relationships that he had, and Matheny's relationship with Molina is great. Don't get me wrong. He mentored Molina. They were good people on the diamond. They great teammates and all of that. But having a guy like Oquendo be the manager probably was the absolute right call in that situation. And I just think the Cardinals didn't want to take that leap. And you can see now that Oquendo is now not really a part of the organization. He's a roving instructor down in Florida, essentially. And now he has nothing to do with the major league team. And that's a bit of a disappointment.
Why do you think it is that Oquendo hasn't latched on somewhere else?
Because I think the Cardinals still somehow have this hold on him to where they're not going to release him to interview for jobs. I also think that after he didn't get the Cardinals job, I think being a manager has kind of become secondary to him. He probably wanted, I think he wanted to be the Cardinals manager, and that's all. And if he didn't get it, then he was going to move on with his career in a sense. And yeah, he did have knee surgery a couple of years ago and definitely took a step back. But I think in my mind, Oquendo thought it was going to be the Cardinals or it's going to be nobody, because it's where I've been. It's what I know. And if I don't get an opportunity with the team that I've been with for so long, I don't know if I want to spend more time pursuing it with another team. Now, I, once again, could be totally off base on that, but I just think he's at a point where he's where he likes to be, and he does not want to go any further.
And he's probably being taken care of by the team. You know,
oh, I mean, most definitely, yeah.
You know he is. I mean, he's been, you know, he's almost kind of hit the Red Shanedeist, you know, status in terms of just duration with the team. I mean, so you might be onto something with that fact. He just simply didn't want to manage anyone else. You know, and then you have sports talk shows like ours wondering what could have been.
That you certainly do. All right, we're going to get one quick update on the NBA Game 5 between the Suns and Clippers going on right now. The Suns are looking to end that series. They're up 3-1 right now, a 98-94 Clippers lead with just under 7 to go in the fourth quarter. So this game got really tight. Clips jump out to a big first quarter lead. Suns fought back in the second. Clippers extended the lead in the third, but the Suns once again have fought all the way back to make it a 4-point game in the fourth quarter, looking to punch their ticket to the NBA Finals. So we'll have an update for that a little bit later on once that game goes final. Kawhi Leonard's still out back in LA rehabbing. So, I mean, not really sure how that, I mean, how committed is Kawhi to the Clippers? That's a question we're going to have to probably ask in the offseason, especially if the Clippers lose this series.
He is definitely how Evgeny Malkin is to the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's such a key guy.
Yeah.
You can't just having a guy out that long. Obviously, the team's going to have consequences, and especially because, you know, basketball, there's significantly fewer. There's 10 guys. You know, versus you could go without, you know, an Evgeny Malkin, even, you know, if you're on the Pittsburgh Penguins, because you got, you know, a bunch of other guys who can fill that spot. When basketball, it's just, there's not a lot of room for depth there.
Well, you saw the Clippers play the Jazz in the last
round,
and
I don't want to talk about it.
but you saw
yes, you saw there was a difference. There was a big difference. You know, there was a big difference. I don't think the team played nearly as confident, you know, and like I said, I'm not a big basketball guy. I don't really follow other teams very closely, but I mean, they were definitely a different team with him out of the lineup in the same way that the Jazz were without Mike Conley. You know, they weren't a confident team without him, you know, so I don't know. By the way, 5-1 Cardinals right now over the Diamondbacks.
Pouring it on.
The moment we talk shit about them, and now here they are. So it's like, oh, everything's fine. All's fine.
Maybe we just need to come on and talk shit about every team that's playing poorly right now. Hey, badmouth the Canadians. Badmouth the Canadians.
Oh God,
Canadians, you suck.
Overrated. Cole Caulfield. I mean, I heard, you know, he kicked dogs the other day. I mean, just you know, despicable.
One thing, Mikhail Sergachev grabbing Gallagher by the head, very much like Tom Wilson did to Artemi Panarin, and threw him down on the ice.
And Paulie D just went yard. 7-1 Cardinals.
Unbelievable.
You have witnessed the turning point.
It's us with the toasted jinx. That's what we're calling it. Hashtag toasted jinx.
Someone from Jeff Albert's family was watching, and you know,
I called him up. It's like, yo,
hey Jeff, and, you know, it's time to actually, you know, turn it around. Execute Order 66 right now.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, you gotta love it. You gotta love it. Hopefully, it is the harbinger of better things for the Cardinals. Although Carlos Martinez does start tomorrow, so we'll see how that goes. Like I said, we'll talk a little bit tomorrow about the potential moves coming for the Cardinals, and also some reinforcements as well. Harrison Bader potentially on the way, as well as another Nolan. We'll talk about Nolan Gorman as well. Keep you updated.
Triple A.
And if you get a chance, the next couple of days, maybe go down to Memphis. Check them out. See what this is all about. So
and check out Gorman at second base, which according to reports, he's doing okay. If he can stay at second, woo.
Let's put it this way: if he can play second base admirably and still hit 288 and hit 11 home runs in 41 RBIs in 67 games, I think he could deal with an error here or there.
I think that'll be fine.
I'll take that. for sure. We'll also jump into the Eastern Conference basketball talk as well, because you'll have Game 4 between the Bucks and the Hawks. Trae Young dealing with a bone bruise. We'll see if he plays tomorrow night as well.
Will Johnny take another free throw again?
You never know. You'll have to tune in to find out for sure. So I want to thank Tom Franklin and Mason Blues Fan Reacts for joining me tonight to talk about everything and everything under the sun as far as sports are concerned. I want to thank Scott for recording with me a little bit earlier today so we get his thoughts as well. And want to give another big shout out to John Hewlett, KC95, for being a part of our intro, and you'll hear him in the outro as well. So thank you so much again to John Hewlett for that.
Well done. Tom Calhoun, you'll still hear him once we get our Blues podcast going.
And thank you to Tom for putting together that absolute masterclass of an intro. Very well done.
I took the
combination
that you built.
Absolutely. No, it's all Tom. All Tom.
Okay, I'll take it.
Tom's supremacy here.
Thank you.
Oh boy. Well, yeah, make sure you come back every weeknight, 9:00 here on Toasted Tavern. Make sure you pull up a stool, grab a beer, grab a beverage, and join us for Toasted Tavern every night at 9:00. I'm Wags. Thank you guys for joining us. Have a great rest of your night. We'll see you tomorrow.
Hey, it's U-Man here from KC. For all your sports news, catch the Toasted Tavern with Scott Tobin and the man called Wags, weeknights at 9 p.m. You can follow Toasted Tavern on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Let's get toasted.